Alright, well, come with me to Drive to Recoil, where we got to pick up the remainder of the all the Amazon returns. So I have yet to get my test bench up. I came close last night, but there was a Denon receiver that I picked up on the Facebook Marketplace, and it doesn't power up. So that means that guy totally knew it didn't power up, but he sold it to me anyway. It makes me cry. But so I've been. I just respond to my feed. If somebody puts something in my feed and I see a way to talk about it, I will talk about it. I'm part of the Kicker forum. And somebody was asking, which I thought was a great question. They said, hey, what's so good about Kicker? And, there's a whole forum dedicated to just fans of Kicker. So it's got to be pretty good. And I said, it's good equipment. It's just overpriced. And a lot of the little fanboys pop in and they go, well, they have their own proprietary blah, blah, blah. And they have their own, research and development facilities, and I go. I started laughing, but I don't want to clown the guy and dismiss him. I'm just like, I apologize. I say I'm sorry you don't understand what the industry really is and does. I go, but that's okay. And then somebody else, of course, claps back, and they're like, "Ha! You don't know what real I don't think he said American, but it was basically like the indication that he thought that Kicker was somehow made in America or something like that. But my response to that was, please, by all means, educate me on why Kicker is so much better than everybody else. And then I also saw, again, it was in my feed, Digital Designs was talking about their non-pressed Freddy Cougar face looking cones, and how they are the lightest and strongest in the world or something like that. Anyways, you got to understand, all these companies know for a fact that they aren't any more special than anybody else. They're not, and they know it. And the reason why you can know it is, number one, you can do all the research that I have and know that way. And that's what I was really determined about when I was in my 20s. I wanted to really find out the truth about all of this stuff. And so I found it out, and I confirmed it with a bunch of engineers about some of my hunches and things like that. But I want you to understand that anybody that advertises, that, first of all, if you're a business and you spend money on advertising, you got too much money. And you're trying to differentiate yourself from the rest of the market by taking advantage of people's ignorance about your industry and about what you're selling. And so, if anything, that should put a different perspective when you're going down the highway and you see a bunch of billboards, typically lawyers, that they're not doing or selling anything that's any different than anybody else. But they want to get your attention, and they know that most of us are just squirrel. Most of us are just have that level of attention. And so if you can catch someone's attention and then squeeze their pocketbook, then, and I hate to say it, but that's what makes you a professional, and that's what makes you a success. And I think we can do better than that. So, but my argument was, that amplifier companies, let's call them that, they all use the same parts. There's no better or worse quality. There's pricing, and there may be a longevity performance thing that you're getting, which is what I find funny whenever Big D Wiz talks about what brand of capacitor that the amplifier is using. I find that funny because if you describe that to a Chinese vendor, they will make fun of you because they're saying what they know is that there's no difference in the capacitor, and they go, oh, you want red sleeve, right? You want just a different color heat shrink on the capacitor, and they'll show you. They're like, oh, you want yellow? Well, we make yellow, and then they'll even put your name on it if that's what you want. Again, there's no difference. And but again, look at the difference, and I'll show that later today. I'll do the review on the Kicker. What is it? CXA 1200.1 versus the Recoil Audio DI 1200.1. So both of them are rated for 1200 watts. I think the Kicker amp actually does right around 1500 watts, if I remember, and that's a little indicator of them that they are choosing a conservative rating based on their name, right? And like all the fancy brands do that. They'll make a 1500 watt amplifier, and then they go, watch, we're going to call this a 1200 watt amplifier because it's true watts. But then they'll sell it for 4 times the price. See how they're doing that? They're taking advantage of you. So you're better off just buying some internet brand, I'll say internet brand, like Scar or Elemental Designs or Recoil, where they just don't practice that practice. They could, but it's I don't know. It's just a marketing thing. So, but when you look at the price per performance, which is the value, you'll find that there are much better values than the fancy name brands like Kicker or Rockford Fosgate or the JL Audio or whatever. And you don't have to pay a lot in order to get high performance and great value. So, but and you got to remember that all those brands started out as value brands in the very beginning. They did the same thing. So, like in the 80s and 90s, Rockford Fosgate was going up against Alpine, right? And if you listen to all the old school rap from that time, they were always talking about how Alpine is better, Alpine's the best, or whatever. And it's not, and it never was. At the time, did they have a really good product? At the time, sure. Was it state of the art? Yes. But again, it only takes time for somebody that, like at American Hi-Fi, the creators of Kenford, Rock, I forget what the other one was. It was Rockford? No.
Rockville?
No, it's not Rockville. God damn it. It was Kenford, and it was a knockoff name. It wasn't even like And then you look at the amps, and they didn't even do a knockoff product. It was just a name grab. And again, a lot of that is just to take advantage of people that don't know any better. But if you actually open up and look at the guts, you're like, oh, this is actually a really quality amplifier. It's just dressed up like a turd. Or again, is to cater to either someone that doesn't know any better or doesn't care. So like I love brands like that are from American Hi-Fi because people shit on them, and oftentimes you can pick them up for really cheap because people again don't recognize the performance that you're buying and the value that you're buying. So I always look for performance technique. I look for Power Acoustik, Anaba USA brands, which was Hot Shots and Cliff Designs and MA Audio, Mobile Authority. So those were all Anaba brands, and they made really good stuff. They just dressed it up in a way that was trying to get people's attention. Squirrel was trying to get people's attention for that moment, and so it's important to know what you're buying. That's all, and that's what I spent all my years doing, is studying this stuff. And then when eventually the fraud that is a fancy brand like PPI finally implodes, they can't afford 72 engineers anymore, and they end up going with one that they get on what is it, it's that gig High Five or something like that, the one that Martha Stewart's doing anyway, that she's plugging for. But then you're just renting an engineer for a couple of days a month rather than actually putting them on the payroll. But yeah, once a company like that implodes, those guys got to go get a real job, doing real engineer work. And I don't mean to shit on amplifier designers, but really there's not much to it. That's one of the first things that they teach you in engineering courses, because typically it's men, and typically it's young men, and typically young men find some sort of pleasure in not only getting one over on the retail pricing of amplifiers, but also it's a good engineering project to show you that you can make an amplifier that's just as good as anybody else, and you can make certain decisions in the production choices of what does the same job. And also, again, you do case studies, just like when you're trying to be a lawyer, you do case studies to see how either the industry or the people or whatever, what they decided, and the wisdom that they used in order to come to that decision. So as an engineering student, one of the easiest things that you can do is pick up like a fancy pants product, like what Velodyne used to be, or Krell, or Crown, or whoever, and look at their designs, and you'll see the signatures of the engineer all over the amplifier by the choices that they made. Which capacitors did they choose? And sometimes, just like when making a movie, sometimes the studio allows the director producer team to make, the highest level choices. A lot of times they don't. And so then you got to figure out why they made the decisions that they did. So, and that comes down to, a lot of times, especially when you're doing a production item like an amplifier, you got to go, why did they go with this capacitor? And a lot of times it comes down to, that's what was available during production. It's good enough. Let's just go with it. Now, other brands are willing to wait so that their capacitors get the little sleeveys on there that say JL Audio, or they say Orion, or whatever they say. And again, does it make the product look better? Yes. Does it justify the price? Absolutely not. But again, if it's whatever the market will bear. And so if the market will bear those kinds of prices, then that's what it is. But back to the implosion of a brand like Rockford Fosgate or JL Audio, once those engineers go other places, they're still in the community, right? And they're still known for their good work. But once you have a real conversation with them that isn't being recorded, and they're kind of older, like in their 50s or even 60s, they just don't give a shit anymore, because they don't want to chase that paper anymore. They don't want to have to work for a corporation that just uses the shit out of them and then throws them away. And so then you start getting some real opinions. So, and what's funny is somebody that's a master of his art form, like Bernie Boland, I've talked to him and had some real conversations about that stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I talk about is from those conversations. So now that Bernie is on the, I don't want to say he's on the payroll of Orion, but he's back to, trading the reputation of that brand and his own reputation for money. What do you know? Orion is the best of the best again. So, and it's important to just take it with a grain of salt and understand that, this is people's living. And sometimes people take their own living really, really serious, sometimes too serious. There was somebody, I'm an administrator on several car audio forums here on Facebook. And a lot of times it'll let me preview what the thing that they're trying to sell. And there was somebody trying to sell like little man purses in the car audio forum, and I was like, nope. And then I figured out there's a little option where I can block somebody like permanently, and I was like, oh yeah, block you. But I remember there was a guy that I dealt with that was selling knockoff purses, and that was his living, and he got mad that I bashed it. Like, hey man, you shouldn't bash other people's living. And I'm like, you're wrong, and I'm willing to take the consequences of that. In that, if you're predatory, no, I'm gonna say something. So like, if you're out there patrolling for either vulnerable women, vulnerable men, children, I'm going to say something. So it doesn't mean that I'm going to be effective, but I'm like, I don't need to allow that to happen under my watch. So, and if it's none of my business, that's fine. I'm willing to take the consequences of your revenge, whether or not you're with the city or the state, or if you just don't want to buy from me, and then you make those accusations towards me. I'm fine with that. So, because again, I have my integrity. I wanted to do the best that I possibly could. And that's what I'm doing by turning over these apple carts of these fanboys. And it doesn't matter what you're a fan of. Again, I just want you to be objective as much as possible and understand that brands, there's no difference between brands. There's only performance and value. There's only performance versus price, which is value. And so that's what I want you to look at. And just give it a look. So that way, and there's product that I still love from Rockford Fosgate. There's product that I love from JL Audio. But am I going to pay retail? Absolutely not. No, you're insane. And even if I had the money, you got to understand that it says more about you, about the way that you spend your money. So like whenever you see a celebrity and then they have a brand that they're supporting in their vehicle, you got to understand that relationship is different than what it appears. Do you understand? There's a little bit of a conflict of interest, but if they can get some free shit, who cares? It's all the same anyway. Does that make sense? So I just want you to be aware. That's all. I'm not going to push you to go this way or that other way, but when somebody asks for my opinion, like I did the other day on, again, it comes up in my feed. SVS is talking about how awesome and powerful and great this subwoofer of theirs is, and I look at the motor and I go, oh, that's the Rockville K9 motor, which is the same as the TC9 motor from TC Sounds and Orion and all that kind of stuff. And what am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to lie to you so that you feel like you're not being ripped off? I'm not your mom. I'm not your mom, and I'm certainly not your dad. And so again, the best thing that I can do to serve you is to give you the truth about these items, and then give you the freedom to then figure it out for yourself and test my theory. So, but I love you guys. I'm gonna go pick up some of these Amazon returns, get home, test them, and then ship them out to you guys. I love you very much, and I'll talk to you later.